Yeah, what's up, man? But yeah, it's good to see you. Like I haven't,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, before I hit record, like I haven't seen you since like summer between high school and
In college,
college.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
the last like memory I have of that is like I don't know if you remember when we hung out at Ward warehouse, I believe.
Uh-huh.
It was at that kitchen shop. And then like one of the salespeople came up to us and was like asking us, "Oh, do you guys need help finding something?" And then you
Yeah.
go, and then you tell her, "Oh yeah, I need help finding a girlfriend. Like, can you help me with that?"
I think I think that's something I was that I totally forgot about that interaction. I just know that like that summer was really like older place and wild, but that sounds like something that I would do. I yeah, that's just me kind of just being friendly and all that kind of stuff. But like that was funny. I don't know if I totally forgot about that interaction, but that sounds like something that I would do.
Like,
So
I just thought it was hilarious. Like, I was like,
yeah,
"Holy crap!" Like, he really just said it. Like,
yeah,
it
yeah,
caught me off guard too because I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
most people are like, oh no, it's fine, like just want to browse quietly." But you hit her with a
yeah,
joke, and then I
yeah.
was like, "Oh my god!" I was like laughing so hard.
I don't know if you remember like Colin. Oh, by the way, he lives with me.
Oh,
Colin I, if you ever know who that
yeah.
is.
He's like, is he a
Yeah.
year younger than us?
He's a year
Yeah,
younger than
that's right.
us.
That's right. And he was like in like orchestra or something, right?
Yeah. I don't know
Wow,
if you
small world.
remember. Yeah, I don't know if you remember. I convinced him to come here, by the way.
Oh,
Just me. I convinced people to come to do things with me.
where are you at right now?
Anyways, Chicago.
Oh, okay. How long
Yeah.
have you been there for? Like,
Shockingly, a lot of people ask me this question recently. It's 8 years, eight, almost
years?
nine, like eight,
Wow.
9, almost 9 years. Yeah.
So pretty much like
Uh,
right after I saw you, you've been in like Chicago like ever since.
yeah,
Mm.
and um, no, so yeah, so I didn't see you that summer. I yeah, no, I the last time I went back to Hawaii was my sister's wedding, which is like 4 years ago. So she got
Mm.
married and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't been back. I missed it and all that kind of stuff. But I remember like I don't know if you remember like Miss Knowles class or whatever. I'm always like the one that says like the most like outrageous things, or sometimes I'll say like funny stuff in like Miss Knowles class and like or like some other classes, and like I'm just like that kind of person that sometimes says outrageous things.
I
So
mean,
that's why yeah
yeah, like I totally agree. Like, I mean, that's why I find you funny. Like, I like,
yeah
wild comedy, absurd
yeah
humor and
yeah yeah
everything. Like,
yeah
just really
yeah
out there
yeah
stuff. Like, I appreciate
yeah
it, but I know a lot of people don't really like it or they don't get it.
yeah sometimes
Yeah.
like it gets on their nerves and all that kind of stuff, and like I get
Yeah.
it. I kind of reflect a lot of that, what I did around like 19, 18, and then I kind of reflected that like, hey, I think sometimes you're just kind of pushing it to the edge, and some people just need to be like, okay, my bad, just say my bad, and then like they're totally cool with it afterward,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people, my purpose of doing that was always to make the class laugh, is really not
Yeah.
to like make fun of people. I hate actually making fun of people. So like it's one of those things that's like sometimes you get misunderstood and all that kind of stuff. But
I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I always knew that, you're coming from a good place. Cause I mean, like, I
hmm
don't know, yeah, definitely like through the years in like high school, like, we got to know each other and everything. And like, I don't
hmm
know, I really vibed off of like your sense of humor because it like,
Yeah.
kind of matches mine. And then like, I don't know, I think like it's really good for people to push like, those
Yeah.
boundaries in terms of like
Yeah.
comedy because it's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, I think it's important, like, as
So yeah.
society moving
So
forward.
for sure. And when you said like, are you afraid to like, say something wrong on this podcast? That's why I was like, David, that's like the last person you asked me. Like, I like don't give a shit. And then it's like obviously I care about my, reputation and all that kind of stuff. But it's like if people are gonna misinterpret it, like what we say today, let them do it. Like I don't care. And then like the last thing I'll do is like, it's like we're having a great conversation. Like why would I would not let that stop us from having a great conversation. So I'm just like all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
kind of like say that because like I've been like I tell this to everybody, like I've been rejected by more guests on my podcast than I have girls in my life. And it's like
That's
it's
so weird.
and then like the singular like the biggest reason why people reject coming on my podcast is because like they're afraid of something that'll get them canceled. So I'm like thinking
Uh
to myself, so you're gonna cancel yourself then.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm just like, it's I guess it's good to be like, or try to be good. It's good to like, attempt to be good with your speech, or like try to be,
Hmm.
I think like that Jordan Peterson thing, be impeccable with your
Yeah,
speech or something. Or is that,
yeah.
no, that's the 4 agreements or something, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, like I think I think that idea is good, but then it's like you shouldn't live in like that fear of
Yeah,
like, yeah, like
yeah,
there's always I think there'll always be time for you to like, explain yourself, or
yeah,
like, the context behind things, and like you said earlier, like
yeah,
people are gonna like take things out of context all the time or get,
yeah, yeah. Um, the funny thing about like this whole speech and non-speech thing, I think it boils down to perfectly this simple rule: just be respectful, right? Like you
yeah,
can
yeah.
disagree, and that's why sometimes people like sometimes like right wings and all this kind of stuff. To be honest, all they are just kind of respectful. Honestly, I'm
Mm,
not really subscribed to the whole right wing or all that kind of stuff, but it's like
mhm,
all they are kind of just respectful. So
mhm.
it's like there's nothing wrong with like, I think like sometimes like, oh, you think that like cancel culture, there's something like weird with that kind of stuff. I think people just have a hard time with them being rude. Like that's it. Like I think
Mm,
if you're like sitting down having a conversation about your thoughts, actually a lot of thoughts are pretty good. Like there's some point to it. Like, but it's just the
mhm.
nature of Antifa and all that kind of weird shit. It's like then
Yeah.
it gets a little bit like kind of like it's like kind of disrespectful and all that kind of stuff, and that's where
Mhm.
things gets a little bit like annoying. So
No, I
oh
mean,
well.
I totally agree, because like, when you try to cancel people, I
Hmm.
feel like you're the person being rude because you're
Yeah,
interrupting, them from like speaking and everything.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I know this past week, like one of the big controversies in that whole like free speech debate thing was like how
Hmm.
YouTube removed Steven Crowder. I don't know if you follow him
Yeah,
or know
yeah,
who that is.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that was like
yeah,
pretty, in the news, or like, in
yeah,
pop culture, like how somebody as big as him. And then
yeah,
it's like to me, I've seen like a few of his like things, and I think it's
yeah,
very like respectful, like how he
yeah,
tries to do it. But
yeah,
then like, I mean, I understand, it's just a very weird time to be alive.
yeah.
Yeah.
I you see, here's the fun part of talking to me because I can always go on both sides. On the one side, I know who Steven Crowder is. He's cool. I have no problem with it. Very
Hmm.
funny. But I also watched another analysis of his videos. He was
Mm,
posting something about vaccine risk and all that kind of stuff. And I think
mhm.
that's maybe, I don't know. Like I think there's some part where you can be lenient about like, hey, you can always ask questions about vaccines and all that kind of stuff. But there's like one statement about like he was linking vaccine to some like long-term like damage and that kind of stuff. I personally
Oh.
are very, very for vaccine. So I think that was, and it wasn't even him. It was his
Mhm,
guest. Like it was like one of his like co-hosts or something that said something about
mhm,
like vaccines linked to like long-term like, and then I was like, okay, like I guess like there's some point to it. But again, I think it's definitely, I think like if you're on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, there is a really serious risk of like your reputations being like like sometimes get exposed and all that kind of stuff. And I don't care. Like I think
mhm.
that's a conversation that definitely it's like we need to like kind of beware about those kind of stuff. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because it's
yeah,
like the way I
yeah.
see it, it's like, it's only a matter of time before they start coming for you. And I mean,
Hmm.
like, I think like after, everything that happened this past year, a lot of people are starting to realize it. Because it's not only the
Hmm.
right getting like, quote unquote
Yeah.
censored anymore.
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
now, the people on the other side that, don't
Yeah.
necessarily subscribe to a particular belief.
Yeah.
And then,
And
eh,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh,
Yeah.
no, 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 go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I don't know if you ever follow big fan of him because he's pretty neutral in my opinion.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry. It kind of like cut out a little bit.
do you ever follow like Scott Adam?
I've never heard of
The
him
guy
before.
Dilbert, the guy who, okay, whatever. Anyways, you should look at his channel. He's like pretty middle and he's
Mm,
pretty like objective, all that stuff. To be honest, the I think the funniest thing about cancel culture is that the only way how you expose a lie or something that's really really bad like cancel culture is to go extreme with their cancel culture stuff.
mhm,
So I'm just gonna list out one example. You know, Coca-Cola is doing business in China, and China is definitely like a humanitarian like disaster. Like
mhm,
it's well documented there. They're having very very concentrated camps, and they're not really. So I think everybody should boycott Coca-Cola just because they are doing something that's like inhumane and unethical. I
mhm,
just think it's that's funny. I'm just thinking it's like like you will cut yourself. Like you will cut yourself by going in this kind of rabbit hole of cancel culture. And like I don't know if you ever watched the summit where China was having a summit with USA, and then the US was criticizing China about like their policy about all like COVID situation, and China go, by your own definition, you're a racist country, so you don't even have a term to lecture us and all that kind of stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
just saying, it's like the cancel culture itself, it will eat itself, and I personally think that it's a bad policy that's gonna go down a rabbit hole.
I
It's
mean,
stupid. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, you have like the entire, right side of the country.
Hmm.
And then you even have guys like, Barack Obama saying like, yo, this woke stuff, like there's no such
Yeah.
thing as being woke enough. Like this is just gonna like
Yeah.
cannibalize ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I totally agree. And then it's like, I get the whole idea of like, oh, there is, wrong speech out there, I
Hmm.
guess. But then it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make
Yeah.
mistakes to me. And it's like to
Hmm.
me, the answer to like, wrong or bad speech is like just better
Yeah.
speech or good speech.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
For sure.
but
I
I mean,
100% agree. Yeah.
it's crazy that like there's like a lot of people out there who like
Hmm.
I'll share that opinion and be like, no, that's wrong. We just need to like
Yeah.
censor everybody. Nobody
Yeah.
should have free speech. Only like news outlets should have free
Yeah.
speech. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
authoritarian there, but I
Hmm.
don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's what makes like America America versus
Yeah.
like your China example where like you really are under the thumb of like the government and you really have to be
Yeah.
careful of what you say or else you could end up in a camp or something or
For
disappear
sure.
like Jack
Yeah.
Ma or something, right?
That's definitely a bad place to be.
Yeah.
And that's like a scary thing to be. So yeah, there's all that kind of stuff.
But
Um,
but yeah, I guess like moving away from like, this topic
yeah.
that we're very much in agreement about,
Yeah.
like how have you been? Like it's been
Yeah.
8-9 years since we've seen
For
each
sure.
other. Like
Yeah.
what are you up in
Um,
Chicago for?
yeah. Okay. Let me kind of rewind and just kind of like, if
Oh,
people are
okay.
listening to this, just
Yeah.
to kind of explain who I am. I'm with David since I think like freshman year in Roosevelt High School.
Mhm.
I'm Taiwanese, originally from Taiwan, and I think moved to Hawaii when I was like 13, 14. And then after college, I moved to Chicago and attended Illinois Institute of Technology. I studied business and I tried to do engineering management, things like that. And the reason why I picked Chicago was I'm a city person. I like
Mhm.
busyness. I like meeting a lot of people. I like to always be on the go and going to concert today and going to something else tomorrow. That's what I like. So I moved to Chicago, and I personally think Chicago is a very, very underrated city. And that's because I just think it's not there yet in terms of just the real estate costs. It's not. It's so cheap. I just looked up yesterday. It's like one fourth the price of San Francisco, but you get the vibe of New York City, and the people are pretty nice here. So I personally love Chicago. Maybe I think the winter is going to be a little bit hard. So
Mhm.
after I graduated from college, this business major and all that kind of stuff, I decided to work at a software company. And ever since, I just kind of got more entrenched, and it's fast. And 5 years passed, and I just be like, hey, I personally don't have any strong opinions of hating Chicago.
Mhm.
I just love it here, and I miss Hawaii, but I think that here there's a lot of good things going on. There's a lot of good, companies building up and all that kind of stuff. So I just decided to stay here. And so Chicago's
Mhm.
really, really nice. Encourage everybody to visit. And
Yeah,
it's one of those cities that's yeah.
that's one city that I wish I stopped by when
Uh-huh.
I was out in Nebraska. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a day trip, out there.
Hmm.
Like I should have definitely stopped by when I was there. Like, cause I've
Hmm.
been to like Denver, like Kansas City, Oklahoma City, but I really should have made like a trip up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody says the food is really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And what's great about Chicago is like, oh, if you ever become a state, Illinois state, there's like two really great colleges, University of Chicago and Northwestern University. So those two colleges are like really, really good. And I just personally think it's like in Midwest, things are pretty cheap as well. So
Hmm.
I personally think it's like, living expense, education, and business opportunities. Here is the perfect place. So I personally think it's one of the. I still think it's underrated, just among the
Mm.
cities in the United States. So it's yeah, and we have a beach here. Like that's a beach, but it's lake. It's not salty, but it's like there's a beach right there, and you can just go tanning over there with like all the sands and all that kind of stuff. It's really nice, really really nice.
Mm.
It's like
Did
I
you ever
love it.
jump in the
So,
water?
yeah, it's like
Is it cold?
super
Like,
cold.
yeah, I
Yeah, it's
imagine
really
it's
cold.
super
Yeah,
cold.
yeah, yeah.
That's
It's always
crazy.
cold, but like just you love those things. That's 89 degrees, and you kind of bath into it, and then it's like in and out, and it feels so good because and then it's like you cross like 2 blocks, and it's like shopping center and malls and all that kind of stuff. It's a really really like beautiful scene, beautiful
Uh,
scenery and all that kind of stuff. So
mhm.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Lately, I've been into like comedy shows. Like, I hear
Uh-huh.
that the comedy scene is pretty big in Chicago too.
Big,
You ever go to
big. I
you
think
ever go to shows
second.
and stuff?
I went to one. I forgot who was it, but it wasn't someone else. But like we have a second city here, and I think Stephen Colbert is from Second City,
Mm.
or some I forgot. I'm not sure. You got to double checking on that. I think just a lot of comedians came from Second City, and it's like a big comedy club like here. So really really good. Like the scene is pretty developed here. There's a lot of creative things going on in Chicago. It's really really nice. So yeah.
Yeah. I guess to like make it so it's not so much me interviewing you and just having a
Oh, okay.
conversation and catching up,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
Feel
yeah.
free to like ask me any questions too, like,
Yeah.
and stop and
Yeah, yeah,
everything.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why med school and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, for me, med school has always been like something I was thinking about through like,
Hmm.
high school and everything. Like I've always liked sciences growing up. And
Yeah.
like I think I've liked sciences, I think, since like middle school or like,
Yeah.
fifth grade time. And
Yeah.
like just especially like life sciences, like biology and whatnot. Like
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like I've had like issues with health in the past,
Okay.
and it was like from those experiences, like I had great doctors that
Yeah.
um were more of a support system than I'd
Yeah.
say like my parents were.
Yeah.
And it's
Gotcha.
like it's like
Yeah.
because of those like experiences and whatnot that like I want
Yeah.
to be able to be in a situation to help, patients that
Yeah.
might
Hmm.
not have like the greatest support systems and everything.
Hmm.
And it allows me to use like, the background knowledge of like sciences to help,
Yeah.
patients. And I
Yeah.
also, and then like I guess like, comparing that to say like other fields in like, medicine,
Yeah.
I would want to be a physician because like leadership is also like a really important thing for me. I've been
Gotcha.
involved in like leadership positions in
Yeah.
undergrad, and it's like,
Yeah.
as a physician, like you pretty much are like the leader in like a patient's like healthcare. And
Right.
I
Gotcha.
appreciate that. And like I want to be that
Yeah.
person that really helps to facilitate like good
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you ROTC?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
That's totally different person.
Sorry,
My
that was
bad.
really
Yeah, I was like, oh, like that's like I thought that was some of the stuff, but anyways, doesn't matter. No, it's great. And it like, what did you miss about mainland, and what did you not miss about mainland? Like moving back
Ooh.
there in Hawaii. Yeah.
Well, I honestly wanted to get away from,
Yeah.
Hawaii when I first moved
Yeah.
away. Like Creighton
Yeah.
was like the only school I applied to. Like I didn't even apply
Gotcha.
to UH.
Yeah.
So it was like Creighton or bus.
Yeah.
Or else pretty much wouldn't have been in college that first, year or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just really wanted to get away from like, my situation here with my parents.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to experience life independent of them.
Yeah.
Um, but like I guess to, answer your question and everything, what I missed the most was like the weather.
Okay.
Like I'm sure Midwest weather,
Yeah.
like it's, you know,
Ooh,
you have to be
it's extreme.
borderline like insane to leave
Yeah.
Hawaii for that type
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
weather up in like the
Yeah.
Midwest.
For sure. Yeah.
Like the weather is like definitely like in Hawaii, you
Yeah.
never need to like, shovel snow or put on a winter coat or have to check like your phone, like, oh, what's the temperature outside?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
you can just go outside and you're like, oh, you'll be fine. Like, what is little rain? But
Yeah.
then like in the Midwest, it could rain and it could be like, like 40 degrees out there. And like you're
Yeah.
gonna be miserable if you don't have the right,
Yeah.
attire.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
that. I also missed the food.
Okay.
Um, like I mean, there were like decent sushi restaurants out in Nebraska, like out in
Yeah.
Omaha, but
Yeah.
like it's not of the same quality of like, fish and other like
Yeah.
seafood that's in
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I loved Omaha. Like Omaha is a good,
Yeah.
it was good fun. Like there's a lot of other types of good food there. Like the Mexican like
Yeah.
food scene is great there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong.
okay.
This is something that I noticed when I moved to mainland. I have never talked to Mexicans or Hispanics until I moved here. I don't understand the culture in Cinco de Mayo before I moved here at all.
Yeah,
Who in our Roosevelt school is Mexican? Do you know?
I know there was one girl whose family owned like a Mexican restaurant in like
Yeah.
International Marketplace, but other
Yeah.
than her, I don't know. Yeah,
Hmm.
like there wasn't many Hispanics at Roosevelt. Like
Yeah.
I mean, like what is Roosevelt? Like you have people from like like Manoa. What are those like the
Yeah. Yeah.
Japanese
Yeah.
Chinese people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Makiki had like a lot of
Yeah.
Koreans and yeah, mainly
Yeah.
Koreans and like Makiki. You had like
Yeah.
Papa Kalea, so you had like the native Hawaiians and everything.
Right. Right.
But other than that, like, yeah, except for like, the big Asian, ethnicities in Hawaii and like,
Yeah.
the Pacific Islanders, like, there were some Samoans, but like a lot of like, native Hawaiians since it's like so close to Papakolea and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like not too much Hispanics for sure. Even
Yeah.
even like Caucasians, there weren't many, or like,
Yeah.
yeah, anyone else other
It,
than that, really.
yeah. See, I've never talked to. Didn't understand Mexican versus Hispanics versus like South America. Yeah, all that
The
kind of stuff.
the
Yeah.
weird thing to me too is like I don't know, like I kind of grew up not really like thinking about like ethnicities or like
Yeah.
nationalities or anything,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
I grew up like, oh, how I'll treat people is like how they treat others,
Yeah.
like just follow the golden rule, be kind to everybody,
Yeah.
treat others how
Yeah.
you'd like to be treated.
For
it's like
sure. Yeah.
it's like I it's to me it was like it really blew my mind that like within the past like 5 years or so, like
Yeah.
everything became about racism, this or
Yeah.
some. But like I never thought I grew up thinking like, oh, I have to treat
Yeah.
this a person of this ethnicity different because they're this
Yeah.
ethnicity. It's like, no,
Yeah.
treat everybody the
Yeah.
same. Like,
Right.
skin color doesn't matter, your
Right.
culture doesn't matter. It's like
Right.
just treat everybody the same, no,
Yeah.
like no exceptions.
And that's the
So
funniest. Yeah, that's the
yeah.
funniest part when I was working in a mainland company, is
Mhm.
that the if you how you know you're in a really really good culture in terms of company culture is when you forgot you're Asian. Like I totally forgot I'm Asian and all, like I'm just
Mm,
working, and then we never that topic really really never came up until like sometimes management really really bring up like those whole diversity stuff and all that kind of stuff.
right.
I completely forgot about, hey, you're Mexican, you're white. I completely, I thought I'm just white or something. I don't know. Like it's like so
Mhm.
weird. And then so I think you're right in that point where I think the best one is when you work, you're so entrenched with everybody else and treat everybody with respect that you completely forgot about this whole race thing. And then
Mhm.
and it wasn't until recently I'm like, oh yeah, I never understood like Mexicans and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's really really funny, and it's just something that's Hawaii is so different from
Yeah.
just everywhere else in the world, you know. So
I, I
yeah,
I guess to like save you too, like when you say you're funny, it's not racism fun is funny. It's like just the absurdism of like how everything changed
yeah,
is funny.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I
yeah,
totally
yeah, yeah,
agree. Like,
yeah, yeah,
because I've
yeah.
had to explain myself to like people saying, like, oh, how can you think racism is funny? It's like I'm obviously not laughing at
Gotcha.
racism. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
just
it's
full disclaimer. Sorry, so disclaimer. When I say it's funny, it's just me. It's a filler word for oh cool or oh haha, like oh like it's like this whole thing. It's I
yeah.
know some people will
It's
misinterpret it, whatever.
I don't
So
know. I just think like how society is nowadays with like, the whole.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just absurd to me. Like I get it that I mean like, I do like to think critically about it. It's like, maybe they have some points there, but I think like, at the end of the day, if we just treated everybody kindly, it doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
yeah,
But
for sure.
that's a
Yeah, yeah,
unpopular opinion sometimes. But
yeah,
it's how
yeah,
I'm still gonna like live my life. I'm just gonna be kind no matter what.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And um,
And I like the fact that you brought up like, yeah, if you're working in a great company, like
yeah,
you forget like nobody even cares about what you are and
yeah,
everything. Like I think that's like
exactly.
that's great.
Yeah, and I think honestly, that's how I think how I would like to be treated. Honestly, it's just you. We work so hard that you forgot I'm Asian. That I need to deserve some special places or I need something. It's just, hey, this person works super well and all that kind of, he deserves merit and all that kind of stuff. And I 100% get it. And that to me is a really, really great company culture of you just, everybody just look at each other. It's like, dude, I really don't see that you're Asian and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very, very interesting culture. And yeah, there's some companies that are like that. Sometimes I'm just like kind of really, really focus on that. So yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. You got any other like questions for me? Like while we're like kind of on that topic of like we're talking about like Hawaii versus Omaha.
Yeah. What is okay? How are the people different? This time is a lot different people in terms of people.
That's a good question. And like, I'm gonna have to ask you about that after. I'll have you answer that same question. So like, honestly, in Omaha, like I thought people were very nice. Like I think what that taught me was that you're gonna find nice people everywhere you go, and you're also gonna find assholes everywhere you go. Like I mean, I can't really say that like, you know, those people there were like, you know, bad or anything. Like I feel like it was very similar to here. It's like I feel like in the Midwest, like, you know, you're dealing with a lot of like, you know, hardships in terms of like the cold and winter. So it's like of course I feel like because like of that, like people are just, you know, gonna be kinder to one another because like, oh, this place sucks. Like, you know, we're in it together, you know. It's like, you know, there's a sense of like, you know, like teamwork, like you know, that like of ideal, like, yeah, we're in this together. But then like in Hawaii, I think everybody's just like chill and like laid back. Because it's like, you know, there's nothing to really worry about here in terms of like weather or anything. But I mean, I will admit, like there definitely were times where like I guess I could say I experienced quote unquote like racism. Like I mean, I volunteered like in a hospital one time, and like one of the patients there didn't want anything to do with me because I was Asian. So but then it's like, you know, I understand, you know, you're in, you know, you're an inpatient, like, you know, you're in a hospital and you've been there for like, you know, days, weeks, you know, I wasn't sure how long that guy was there for. Like you're just not in a, it's not a high point in your life. So it's like I understand. Like I don't like, I'm like not like, oh, you know, F that guy or whatever. It's like, you know, it is what it is. It's like, okay, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, there's always somebody else that can help you out too.
Gotcha.
But you know, generally I'd say everybody was very nice there.
Nice.
What about you?
So I would say 80%. Okay, I would say everywhere you go, 80% of 80% of the people are pretty much the same. What I mean by that is that they will greet you, they'll say hi, they will, all that kind of stuff. It's very, very like the same. And they're obviously they're going to be rude people. They're going to be people who are just on the rush and always like kind of just let you go and all that kind of stuff. So I would say like 80% is the same. And here's where the 20% it's a little bit different. I just think that like from Hawaii, it's just like if you really want to get to talk about it and all that kind of stuff, it's a really, really Asian dominant culture. So it's like very, very aware and all that kind of stuff. Even I would say Caucasians living there are very, very aware of, you know, Japanese culture, you know, Korean and all that. And I think that's pretty much the same when you go to like LA and all that stuff. But when you move to the Midwest, I don't think it's a prejudice thing. I don't think it's a racism thing. I just think it's a more of a prejudice thing where they don't really understood a lot of the things that you kind of grew up with or come from or all that stuff. And that can be good and bad. So what I mean by that is that so the bad so the good part is that like where they just think that like, hey, we have the best sports team here, we have the best school here, we have the best food here, where we have the best city here. You know, we don't need to visit anywhere else in the country. So that's like the good part in terms of them, all that kind of stuff. And here's where the bad part is that, yo, if you ever like been to other countries or other like how other people are, how we brought up in terms of like studying and all that kind of stuff, we do a lot better than them. We have a very, very tight culture, and we have a very, very tight like way of doing things that they
Hmm.
don't know about, and they
Right.
completely are so ignorant about. I think that's the
Hmm.
part where sometimes I get frustrated. Is just there's some processes or things that are just like, hey, you're not doing it correctly, and I'm just like, I think that's just the difference between Midwest and every other world. It's just like we have done some things that are like pretty good already, and they just sometimes
Hmm.
don't know about, and the people that know about, it's like whatever. And I have to admit, all my Caucasian friends are people who usually moved around a bit, who have been to different school, so
Mm.
they have to understand how why that feels a little bit different when you have to get into a different culture and understand them or
Hmm.
adapt to different things. So I have to admit that like I personally don't have a lot of Caucasian friends, right? And the ones that they do either are Europeans or they moved around a little bit. So I was to say that's like the biggest difference. Just I think they're a little bit less aware of how good sometimes the world can be and how
Hmm.
good we're doing. But other than that, like everyone else is pretty same, friendly, um, really nice. They just want to do their thing. And you really, really, and the thing about, okay, the biggest difference between Hawaii and those, I know that we have like, we watch football, I know we watch basketball, but we don't really, really have a state team. So
Hmm.
like the culture here is very, very big on college football, college basketball. It's very, very big on those kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And that's the only thing that's unfortunate about Hawaii is just we have to rely on the state for NBA teams or NFL teams. So
Hmm.
that's the only thing where I couldn't understand where they're coming from. That's
Yeah.
so anybody listening to this, it's like if you're going to mainland, know your state's team or know your team from other places, or else it's going to be a hard conversation to talk
Oh
about
yeah,
with
for
people.
sure. Like in Nebraska, like Creighton basketball,
Yeah,
like everybody knows that Creighton basketball is like really big. Like they're
yeah,
usually consistently in the postseason and like
yeah,
March
yeah,
Madness and everything.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then of course you have like the Cornhuskers, University of Nebraska, for
yeah,
football. It's like
yeah,
there's no real big like professional teams there, but I totally get what you
yeah,
mean. Why where
yeah,
like there is like a sense of pride that kind of like
yeah,
brings people together. It's like this
yeah,
is
yeah,
our team. Whereas
yeah,
like in Hawaii, I guess the closest thing you have is like UH, but then it's like
yeah,
that scene isn't really all that big. Like the
yeah,
turnout isn't
yeah,
all that great either.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
totally get what you mean.
and
Like,
you got to understand St. Patrick's Day. You got to understand Cinco de Mayo Day. Like that's a very big thing here in Midwest. Just
oh yeah,
it's
they
so
dye
big.
the stream green or something, right, in Chicago. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy, and like they go crazy. Like they like plan days before that, and there's certain like days where you should drink and all that kind of stuff. It's a really really big thing that like anybody listening to this, it's like you got to understand like that's their thing of doing it here, and I didn't understand until I moved here. So
Hmm.
it's a really really interesting place, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, you obviously seem to like it enough if you're willing to stay there for like 8, 9 years
Yeah,
now,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure if you hated it, you probably would have like been like, oh, screw this place. I want to move back home or something. I guess that
yeah,
leads to
yeah.
like the next question I guess I'll bring for you.
Hmm.
You ever feel homesick?
Starting to, but not as
Mm.
much as you think. Um, just because when you're young, you're trying to move out, you're trying to, talk to people and
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. And then I start to realize that like, hey, a lot of my really, really good friends and all that kind of stuff are like from West Coast or from Hawaii.
Yeah.
So that's like the biggest thing I would say, like, just sometimes moving back is moving back for the people.
Hmm.
It can get a little bit cold here, just in terms of like people to people, but
Mm.
I think that's the primary reason why people move away, to be honest, just because people are a little bit like just because you couldn't mix well and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but other than that, like no, like no, it's like I miss the people, like kind of back there and all that kind of stuff. I'm by the way, that's why I think there's confusion of like when I say that or people say that, it's like they don't people don't hate you here, but it's just like, oh, I think there's just it's very very different style of how we grew up in Hawaii versus here. So sometimes there's a barrier of like how we grew up and all that kind of stuff, and that sometimes can cause a little bit of miscommunication. I'm not even talking it just because like I lived here for 8 years, so I tried a lot of ways to like mingle, to do all that kind of stuff. And I start to realize like, hey, people in Hawaii and all that kind of stuff, they really love me and all the kind of stuff. So it's like very, very interesting of how kind of things are playing out a little bit. So yeah.
Are there a lot of
Very
people
fun.
from Hawaii up there in Chicago?
Nice. No, not that much.
Like, just
Yeah,
Colin?
Colin, and I would say like sometimes you run into here and there,
Oh, wow.
but not as no, no.
Mhm.
Not, I'll even say not even from California. It's
Uh,
like it's yeah, it's like that. I'm not, and by the way, this is Chicago. It's
mhm.
probably worse when you go to like Iowa, Michigan, or a lot of different places. And for some reason, I think they're in a lot of them are in University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. It's just really really good school. So they're like staying over there a little bit.
I see, I
But
see.
other than that, yeah, it's not a lot of people from Hawaii. So you will meet great friends here. You have a great time, but
Mhm.
just be prepared that it will be very different, very a little bit different. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's like great advice for like people
hmm,
moving away from Hawaii for the first
yeah,
time, where like you
yeah,
might not necessarily have a lot of friends and like wherever you're at. Like
yeah,
you really do need to put yourself out there.
yeah,
And you do really need to like be open to like
yeah,
experiences and like really try to like
yeah,
see what, the new situation you're at has to offer.
yeah,
And like
yeah,
I totally agree. And then like you just really drove home that point, talking about St.
yeah,
Patrick's Day, Cinco de
yeah,
Mayo, like how it's like,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
no,
yeah,
like this is like a state or city holiday where everybody pretty much drinks. Like that's
yeah,
hilarious.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, and no, but I'm gonna say anytime you bring up that you're from Hawaii, you're instantly the center of the conversation. Just
Oh,
instantly.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like that is just a conversation that everybody wants to chime in and everybody's like, whoa, like what's going on? If you're from Hawaii here, the first thing conversation, you're gonna be a star. Like if you play
Yeah.
it right. Like, like everybody is curious, like why did you leave Hawaii? Why is it so great
Yeah.
about
That's
Hawaii and
that's
all
the
that kind
very
of stuff.
first question everybody asks is like, why
Mm-hmm.
would you leave Hawaii? Like, what's wrong with
Exactly.
you?
Yeah,
It's like, are
yeah,
you insane? Like, why would you
yeah,
leave like, 80-degree weather for like, temperature extremes where it's like 110 during the summer sometimes and like,
yeah,
sometimes it's 20 below. And then
yeah,
like what people don't talk about the Midwest is that wind chill. Like,
yeah, yeah,
honestly, like, third between like 30 degrees to like zero, it's
yeah,
not too bad until
yeah,
you factor in the wind.
yeah,
And like the
yeah.
wind is just, oh my God, like that's what I hated the most about the Midwest. Like
Wind
that
chills
wind. Yeah, the wind
that
chill,
mess you up. Yeah.
it just like goes right through you. Like, oh, it like gets down to your bones and everything.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
100%.
It's
percent Yeah.
yeah. The cool thing about Hawaii, I would say, is like the summer and all that kind of stuff is not sticky. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It's like you don't sweat a lot, so it's like but it's very very cool weather and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So that's definitely a really really unique part about Hawaii that I would say
Hmm.
like it's even hard to find it even in West Coast cities. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I hear that Chicago's pretty nice because like you guys are like right on the water, so the water
Hmm.
helps a little bit.
Yeah,
Like,
for the chill. Yeah, yeah, when
mhm.
summer and all that kind of stuff. So
For the warmer times it
yeah,
helps. But
yep,
in
yep, yep.
Nebraska, like there's no like large bodies of water like that. So it just like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
water helps a lot. Like that's why Hawaii
yeah,
is nice because it's surrounded by water. Like
yeah.
I also feel,
I was gonna
yeah.
say if you're gonna go to Creighton or something, just be prepared just to study. Like it's just a great place to study, but it's like just with the weather, all that kind of stuff. It's like I can't help but say it's like it's a little bit like it's a little bit cold and a little bit empty, but it's like whatever. Creighton
Uh,
is Creighton, and it's
I
all
think
this stuff.
I also
Yeah,
think that's why people drink a lot too, when you're
yeah,
cold.
yeah,
Like it certainly helps. It certainly makes the experience a lot more enjoyable. Like,
yeah.
since we're on the topic of beers and everything, like what I've noticed is that like people in Hawaii don't like ales for the most part. They're more on the
Huh.
lager side. Like they like the
Yeah.
lighter beers and everything. But then in the Midwest, it's like once it starts to get cold, that's when everybody starts busting out like the stouts and
Yeah.
Guinness and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think Goose Island is the brewery
Yeah.
is in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
my friends is like a brewer there. At least the last time I checked
Yeah.
on him, he's a brewer there. And like every year, like they come out with like a very popular or infamous like stout, the Bourbon County.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yeah.
stout barrel aged
Yeah.
aged in bourbon barrels. Like, yeah, those are like
Yeah.
excellent and everything. Like
Yeah.
it's because of the climate, like it's definitely not as enjoyable here versus like somewhere
Yeah.
where it's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, it's yeah, that's a drink a lot. There's like
Yeah.
so much.
What's
It's different. Yeah,
what's your
a lot of
favorite
stuff.
beer? Like to I guess like to throw you a
Me is
curveball, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Me is dark. I like dark and I like vodka a lot. So it's like I
Mm.
like dark liquor and like obviously in vodka. It's like the simple stuff.
Mm.
It's one of those things. Um, funny part, it's like another different part topic that we can get into.
Hmm.
It's like they can. It's like I think they did a psychological study. It's like, oh, are you a dopamine or are you like an alcoholic kind of person, or are you like those kind of like chill? Like I forgot what was like. There's like three different kind of chemicals and
Yeah,
all
so
that
it's
kind of
like
stuff.
it's like are you into stimulants? Are you
Yeah,
into like depressants? And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe like, are you into like some kind of like other type of
Right,
psychoactive
right,
like,
right. For
drug?
me, a stimulant. I
Mm.
personally like caffeine and other stuff that we like stimulant, all that kind of stuff, and I like shows, and I like to like all that kind of stuff. And it's like you're laughing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we not?
No, no, no,
Is
no,
that
no. Like
too much?
no, it's like totally fine. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not really. I mean, I always had
Ever
that
thought about
like,
that?
I always had that like idea too, where like I don't know, like your personality kind of determines like what type of drug
Mhm.
you like. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
personally, like I don't use stimulants other than like for working out, like pre-workout.
yeah,
But like
yeah,
I
yep,
typically don't do too well with like
yeah.
stimulants. Like they're not
Gotcha.
they're not my favorite thing.
Yeah,
I do like drinking.
yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Fuck it. Let's get into it. I did have like an opiate addiction at one point in my life, like,
Oh,
but not,
interesting.
like street drugs, like like prescription. So it was like
Gotcha.
it was after a surgery, and
Yeah.
I actually
Ooh,
did
yeah.
develop like a drug dependency on it because like,
Interesting.
and like, yeah, that was a good
What?
time. But that
What?
withdrawals, man, that was
Yeah.
awful for two
Was
weeks.
that during high school or
Yeah, it was
college?
during high
Or
school. Yeah,
gotcha.
it was when I was
Oh,
gone for an entire semester. I don't know if you remember that.
dang.
There's not
I
even a lot of
remember.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we had a lot of classes together. That's why, for the most part.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. It was
That's
like,
so what was it? Like Oxycontin or like what were you
yeah,
like?
like codeine.
Oh,
And then like
gotcha.
but the codeine didn't have any like Tylenol in it. So it was like, oh,
Yeah.
like don't have to worry about liver toxicity too much. And just
Gotcha.
kept, yeah. And then eventually it was
Yeah.
like, oh, the doctor was like, oh yeah, you're kind of like going through this a little hard. We're gonna have to cut you off. And I was like, at that point,
Gotcha.
like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
definitely felt the withdrawals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you cool with me asking you questions on this
Yeah, yeah,
stuff
yeah.
and all that kind of
Go
stuff?
for
Yeah.
it.
No, so why do you think personal philosophy, it's like why do you think people have addiction, or why do you think people crave those things? Either that's
Hmm.
cigarettes or alcohol or stimulant or like oxycontin, like those kind of
Okay,
stuff.
I guess I'll have to like start with the preface that like, okay, this isn't backed by any science and this is just
Okay.
opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I think a lot of the reason why people turn to drug use, I guess
Yeah.
as like overall, is
Yeah.
because, you know, in their like life, maybe
Yeah.
it's not there's not much stability, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's easy to turn to something
Hmm.
as an escape. But then
Yeah.
I feel like that's also a very specific use, because there's
Yeah.
also the people that use it recreationally where
Right.
it isn't as an escape. Like it's purely
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
like
Okay.
there's definitely both sides of it. But
Yeah.
I guess for like in terms of the abuse, it's because like
Yeah.
I think the war on drugs for the most part was a disaster.
Right. For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
think because of it, like, that's why we have all the issues with like fentanyl deaths, like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
tainted drugs and everything.
Yeah.
Like I feel
Yeah.
like if it wasn't the case, from the whole like, war on drugs and everything, like maybe it'd be safer, and maybe like
Yeah.
the education of it would be,
Right.
more there, where it's like, oh, this is all you need.
Gotcha.
Like kind of like what happened with like the whole like, weed industry is gonna, you know, like taking
Yeah.
off. Like
Yeah.
it's very regulated, it's safe, you know, that, you know, there's no
Yeah.
like additives or pesticides in it, like for the
Right.
most part, like, you know, what you're
Right.
getting, you
Right.
don't really need to worry about what you're getting,
Gotcha. Okay.
versus like buying it from like a street corner or wherever you know,
Right.
pick up whatever it is
Yeah.
you're trying to like, you know, take. It's like
Yeah.
you really don't know how the quality of it and whatnot.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
In was that sorry, I was like so was that a incident? Like how did you hurt yourself that you have to
Oh,
be
I
on?
mean, it was cancer. Like I had cancer
Gotcha.
in high school.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I had
Yeah.
to get it
Yeah.
cut out, and then, you know, that's just what they prescribe. Like, you know,
Right.
it's not fun when they have to cut through like muscle. It's like
Yeah.
very
Yeah. Yeah.
painful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Have you ever heard of like kratom for pain relief and all that kind of stuff? Kratom or kratom or
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely heard of
yeah,
that. It's
yeah,
I know that like a lot of people use it to like wean off of opiates.
opiates, yeah,
Yeah. So
all that kind of stuff.
supposedly it does bind to like, you know, the same
Right.
receptors. I think it's the
Yeah.
kappa opiate receptor. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
I haven't looked into it for quite some time
Yeah.
now. Um yeah, I believe it does bind to the same receptor, but the mechanism of action is slightly different,
Gotcha.
which is
Okay.
why it
Yeah.
could, I think, I don't think we should just outlaw things. I think
Yeah.
they should be investigated, and like we should really
Right.
see if it could be a good alternative, you know. But I think the
Yeah.
science is still out on that one.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that it helps a lot of people. And, you know,
Yeah.
if what I tell people is like, you know, talk to your doctor about it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you might hear all of these like, you know, great advices on like, you know,
Yeah.
YouTube or Facebook or
Yeah.
like Instagram, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you should really consult your doctor, because your doctor knows
Right.
like what's probably best for you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You ever
Okay.
try it?
That's no. So
Oh,
that's your drug story, and I'm gonna talk about mine because that's only the
okay.
way that's fair and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so I crave stimulants, and ever
Mm.
since college and ever since high school, I like pre-workout. I drink a lot of caffeine. I drink a lot of those kind of stuff to kind of like help me all those kind of stuff. And then I always never was the believer of psychotherapy or seeing a psychiatrist or any of those kind of stuff. I just thought that hey, when you are feeling sad, um, do something about it. Think positive, or like your
Mhm.
life is somehow messed up, or you need to fix it, or you need to, like toughen up and all that kind of stuff. I was
Mhm.
all the way like that until I was 24.
Oh.
Until afterward, I started talking to one of my friend who has ADHD,
Mhm.
and then, and I could never understood why I wasn't capable of kind of being in a relationship, or I wasn't, I just kind of skip out on things, or I have a lot of ideas, but I just never really execute on them. And it's like I was always the guy in the class that like always answers brilliant questions, but they never do their homework. And then the professor is always like really puzzled and be like, hey, your participation points is always so high and so forward and you have great all that, but you never just get your homework right. I don't get what's going on. And
Mhm.
I obviously I'm not going to turn the camera to like look at my house. It's like, sometimes my house is like pretty messy and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So my friend recommended to go see a psychiatrist, and then I talked to a psychiatrist, and he basically do a questionnaire, and he's like, yo, I think you're definitely ADD, but I'm not sure if you have ADHD, so you should try some Adderall treatment, all that kind of stuff. Let me
Mm.
tell you, 80% of my problem that I thought I have solved within just
Wow.
one try. It's
Mhm.
it's 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 insane to like. And I really, like I said, I didn't believe in therapy. I did not believe in seeing a psychiatrist
Mhm.
until I was starting to go on that treatment. Within a year and a half, I got into a relationship. I was able to keep my job. I fix a lot of things, and a lot of the worries that I used to always work on Saturdays. And then I never really feel, you never are, when you're working, you're not really working, but when you're resting, you're not really resting. It's called
Mm.
restlessness.
Right.
And then I started to do that, and then the treatment worked. And so I'm just gonna say it's like that was my story of my like kind of my drug history and all that kind of stuff. However, obviously when you're listening to this, like consult a doctor, all that kind of stuff, and
Right. Right.
it's kind of funny and those kind of shit. I would say that like I pretty much keep my dosage the same. I never go abuse them. I never go higher.
Mhm.
I never want. You're never supposed to feel high from
Right, right.
Adderall treatment. You're
Mhm.
never supposed to use that more than, I'll say, like 5 days in a row or like 4 days in a row, and you always
Okay.
should take your edge off and be very, very use that as a treatment and use. That's the thing with like, if you really, I'm so glad that I took it at 24,
Mhm.
because if I took it at 18, I'll use that as a crutch. A lot of people that are listening to this, you know what that feels like and all that kind of stuff. For me
Uh-huh.
at 24, I treat this drug with respect, and I have a different perspective on this. Is that it's like if you have never had power and you have power, you learn to respect. And I
Mhm.
personally think that now I can accomplish a lot of things just because
Mhm.
I was able to solve a lot of my own problems. So that's kind of like my history of like
Uh-huh.
drug
That's
use. So
that's
it's
like a very that's a very interesting point too. Like, yeah, that's, I mean, first of all, I guess I wanted to like talk about like, I feel
yeah,
like your resistance to like, therapy or seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist is probably because of like, growing up Asian.
yeah,
Yeah, like it's
yeah,
always like, oh, suck it up,
yeah,
like I feel like it's never talk about your feelings or anything.
right,
It's always
right,
like, oh, it's just you. Like
yeah,
yeah, you're just making it an issue when it really isn't an issue.
right,
Like I feel like
exactly.
that's very much the Asian mentality. Like if there's
Yeah,
anything wrong, just sweep it on the under the rug and
yeah,
carry on.
yeah,
Uh, but like I guess to like talk about another thing is like you bring up a very interesting point too, because like I realized like as I got older, like I've also kind of felt like I'm not really all like there in the head, if that makes any sense.
hmm
Like
hmm
in terms of like focusing and whatnot. Like
gotcha.
I find it very hard to like focus nowadays and like stay on task or everything. Or, like
Yeah,
my mind just like wanders like a lot.
yeah, yeah,
Like so
yeah,
like I've considered like trying to see if
yeah,
maybe it's something I
yeah,
need, but then
yeah,
like going back on your point about like using it as a crutch, like I don't want to feel
right,
like it is a crutch.
right,
So
right.
like I guess if if I do go to like a psychiatrist or something and I
Yeah,
were to get like
yeah,
diagnosed as like
yeah,
adult onset like ADD or
yeah,
ADHD, I think I
yeah.
would try to exhaust like like the
Yeah,
therapy means first, like
gotcha.
cognitive behavioral therapy or something
Yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like it is
Um,
something that I've put a lot of thought on. Like it's
right.
something
S-
that I feel like
Yeah.
I
So,
feel like, yeah, I
so
definitely am
yeah,
not doing as well in
yeah,
life and as I could be, because like, and it's
right.
I mean, I've talked to friends about it before who are Asian, carry that Asian mentality. It's like, oh, it's just like a lack of discipline or something.
Yeah,
But it's like,
yeah.
I don't think it is, because I'm like literally like
So yeah,
sitting there beating myself over the back of the head trying to get something done, but
right.
it's like it's just not really
Yeah.
happening. Yeah.
So I think I have like a couple perspectives on this.
Mm.
Um it's not a crutch because I personally think the drug doesn't bring you success. I personally think
Hmm.
because I personally here's why. I mean, it's like um it's like imagine like a gun or like an arrow. Um, the arrow and the drug helps you shoot it, helps you fire off what needs to do, but it doesn't tell you where to point it. So
Mm.
I've worked in a lot of different job situations. I've been to different fields and I've seen a lot of my friends who kind of within the same field. I I personally think like if you take that drug or if you work super hard on a wrong goal,
Hmm.
you are probably going to end up worse than you started before. And that's what I'm
Mm.
saying. Like, I'm so glad that I started at 24 because I
Hmm.
know what I'm capable of, and I know that you achieve a lot of success without it. And
Hmm.
it's just the last 20 or the last 30% of the equation was missing. So that's why I was figuring out like this drug completely solved it. So I
Hmm.
personally say like, okay, if you're listening to this and you're 13, obviously I think that you should like give it a try and all that kind of stuff. And then that's the first thing. I was like, you should talk to your doctor. And it's like maybe 18, maybe 19. I don't know. But I'm saying that like it's not a magic pill in my opinion. I think that it tells you where it shoots, it helps you shoot the arrow, but it doesn't tell you where to shoot it. And if you shoot at the wrong place, I've seen people done some really, really stupid things,
Hmm.
like with those kind of stuff. And that to me is just like that's just a failure in strategy. And I personally think that that's just that no, that's all that kind of stuff. And I think it you lose some of your personality, but you gain some of the good ones. So I'm just saying it's like all the good part happening in my life was because of my original brain, my own personality, and my
Right,
own
right.
thoughts. The Adderall just helps me accomplish it within a shorter amount of time. I'm gonna accomplish whatever that I need to do, but it's just
Mhm.
it helps you, like for example, like doing a 5 set bench press, like maybe like you're gonna finish it in 30 minutes or finish it in 15 minutes. It's like, hey, like I don't think it matters, but then like if you do that 15 minutes and you hurt yourself, it's gonna be you're gonna it's worse for you. So you might as well
Mhm.
do the 30. So I think it's like for me personally, that's how I view it, and that's how I take the drug, and that's why I never want to go over, and I just never think that it was a crush. So to kind of that was a
Okay.
long answer to what you're like were asking and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that kind of
thinking
stuff. So
about,
it's very funny.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah.
You brought up
I
lifting.
personally, yeah. It's it's just I personally think it's like, it's if you're a guy who, has some good skills, you
Uh-huh.
accomplish a few things, but you're like, why am I feeling so restless, or why am I so anxious all the time? Or, why can I sometimes can't keep a relationship and all that kind of stuff? I think it's time for you to talk to your psychiatrist or just see if there's any options, don't
Mhm.
I think that's the part is like Asian people are so afraid of those kind of stuff and ask for help, and that's a really,
Uh-huh.
really, a really bad thing, like to
Mhm.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's like, funny you mentioned that. Like after I graduated from undergrad, I actually
yeah,
started working at a psychiatric hospital. So like
yeah,
now I'm like a pretty big proponent of like, I think everybody should,
yeah,
you know, talk to like a psychologist or like a
yeah,
counselor or a therapist of some sort, or even
yeah,
like, I don't know, like me, like a licensed person. Like, yeah,
yeah,
for some people might have good friends that are good
yeah,
listeners and whatnot, but
yeah,
like I don't think it hurts you to talk to like
yeah,
a licensed to like, mental health
yeah,
professional.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
so like
I
I
personally
totally
have one.
agree and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it
Like
helps me. Yeah,
mm-hmm,
helps me a lot, and I think that drug is, definitely part of the one of the problems of like fixing your brain chemistry, but
mm-hmm,
another part is like, the therapist help you understand why you should or shouldn't have made that decision. I
mm-hmm,
think the therapy helps you figure out the why is very, very important. So
mm-hmm.
hey, mental health, man, that stuff is really, really important
Yeah,
in my
and
opinion.
I'm glad that like, it's helping you a lot. I'm glad that like,
Yeah,
you found something, both
yeah,
therapy and, a drug
yeah,
means of it. And I think that
yeah.
like I think that really adds to the point that like drugs aren't inherently like good or
Mm-hmm.
bad. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's how you use them.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like you
yeah.
could obviously like, abuse them for a high and that's when you start running
Right,
into issues, or you could use
right.
them like you do where you don't feel high whatsoever, but it helps you
Yeah,
accomplish your daily tasks and everything.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think like a lot of I think it's funny too, going back to the whole like, oh, it's like the negative things about being
Yeah,
Asian. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, it's like a lot of Asians, like I know for the most part, I feel like see everything as like black and white. Like it's either all
yeah,
good or all bad.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, yeah, I realize, in life, that's very rarely the case where,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of gray area. It's very
Yeah,
rarely black or white. So
yeah.
yeah. And
And
I'm happy that's like you're doing well, man, in that regard.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like I was doing well before,
Hmm.
and that's a point what I was talking about in terms of strategy is because I was able
Hmm.
to discover what I want to do now. So I'm a product designer. I'm a software designer, and before that I was doing consulting and I was doing a lot of like sales and all that kind of stuff. So I just my original brain helped me to figure out how to become a product designer, and Adderall just helps me go through that faster. But
Hmm.
in my opinion, I think that if I took it really, really early, I would have discovered my passion. And that's where I think you really, really need to be careful about, do what are you taking this drug for? Are you just helping to concentrate? But don't take it as I need to do this to make money. It just doesn't work that way. And to be honest, I
Hmm.
think that it's like I think strategy a lot is like very important, and Adderall will help you figure out and
Hmm.
those kind of stuff. So it's always my cautionary tale to people about like if you want to start them those kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
very
Well,
interesting. Yeah,
thank you for sharing that story with me,
yeah,
like the listeners and everything. Like
yeah,
like I think it could be very valuable for like a lot of people out there, you know, and it's like pretty valuable to me too, because it's like I kind of like was still thinking like, oh, you know, it's probably a crutch, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe it's something I should probably like explore too. You know, it could,
yeah,
you know, especially since like it's like hard to
yeah,
focus and like yeah,
yeah,
I do realize that like my thoughts are all over the place all the time. I
yeah,
have too many
yeah,
interests and like it's like oh, what do I
yeah,
do? Like what should I want to
yeah,
pursue? Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, and I think it's like, hey, if you're using it for a good purpose, and
Hmm.
honestly, I'm gonna say, I think it's like there are a lot of people in this world that like will secretly tell you that sometimes cognitive enhancement or all those kind of stuff is the reason why they're a little bit successful. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's a thing that you have to decide for yourself. To me, my opinion is just like, hey, it's like, oh, I know it's a little debate. It's like, oh, you wouldn't tell a person that has diabetes, like you're taking insulin, that you're cheating.
Hmm.
So that can be sometimes said about ADHD or ADD.
Yeah.
So
And
I,
that's a very fair point. Like,
yeah. So
yeah.
you know, it's like definitely I think be careful about those kind of drugs, and that is it's Schedule 1 or 2, so you need to consult a doctor and do it at
Hmm.
your own risk. And if you
Yeah.
have a history of substance abuse, don't do it. I
Hmm.
personally don't, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
so mhm, yeah,
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
funny.
that's a very good point. But
Yeah,
you brought up something I was interested in. You actually brought up two things, but I'll start with the first one. Are you lifting now? Like you brought up a
yeah,
weightlifting analogy.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
What's
yeah.
what you yeah, you're looking really good, man. Like I know
Oh, thank you,
like,
thank you.
I'm not quite posting up like, you know, these like recording, like the video recordings yet, because like,
Yeah,
you know, I've been having issues with like quality when
got it.
uploading.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like it looks
yeah,
really clear to me now, but then
mhm,
like I guess like downloading it from like Zoom or whatever, like
yeah,
I take a massive hit in like quality, and
gotcha.
like uploading it I
Yeah,
lose more quality. So yeah,
yeah,
that's like something I'm gonna have to figure out if I eventually want, but I don't think I want to
yeah,
do it this way until maybe it's like in person.
yeah.
uh
Uh,
but yeah, so
yeah.
like what's your workout splits looking like right now? Like
So,
you're looking good,
so
man.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, thank you. So this is like this is a thing that I wish someone could like tell me like a lot of like before. So I think ever since like college until like I kind of graduated like first year, I was always lifting for like strength, like
Mm,
really, really powerlifting and like really, really doing a lot of those kind of stuff. So and then it's like it feels good and all that kind of stuff. Until I realized it's like, sometimes you gotta look good. Like you gotta look good and you gotta like, make sure that you're fit and all that kind of stuff. So I started more in terms of like diet and a lot of those kind of stuff. And to people that kind of like obviously if you're fit, you have no problem like listen to
mm-hmm,
this. But I personally think that like especially for people that like because strength is sometimes it's really, really hard to see progress, but let me tell you that if you're like a little bit overweight or if you're like, just a little bit puffy and all that kind of stuff, you losing weight, people would notice instantly. And all that,
mm-hmm.
it's a really, really good boost. And then, by the way, I hate diet. I've done a lot of different diet programs, and it's like I hate dieting, and it's like once you've done it once diet, you would never want to do it again. So
Uh-huh.
my thing is like I do like slow carb diet. So it just basically means like I eat a lot of protein and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
beans and rice. But then, I switch out all the kind of stuff. Like depends on the day that I'm working out or not working out. So I keep myself purposely really lean just because I never want to go through diet again. And I'm like meeting people all the time. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
be like puffy as well. So
Right.
that's kind of like my workout routine and schedule, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, so for you it's more diet than anything. Like
Yeah, diet and like workout and stuff. But then like in terms of like workout and stuff, I still do strength training a lot.
mm-hmm,
I mostly kind of focus on like upper body, and then I just do a lot of fitness and high intensity training for my legs and all that kind of stuff. So
mm-hmm.
that's kind of like how I do it and how I approach kind of my diet. And the thing is like I like to wear skinny jeans, so that's why I don't like to like that's why I don't like to like go on this like rapid diet and all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
Makes sense.
it's really funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
You like do you how's your workout stuff?
Yeah, right now, well, I try to lift in the morning, and then like
Yeah.
I either try to run or like play basketball in the evening.
Yeah.
And then like on the weekends and stuff, like if I have time and like I can get a tee time, like I'll go out and, you know, get on the golf course and play around a
Oh,
golf.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Like, so, I mean, I used to lift a lot, but like now that
Yeah,
everything's like slowly opening up more in Hawaii,
yeah,
like
yeah,
I've been
yeah,
playing basketball, like, you know, at least once or twice a week.
yeah,
Yeah. Like that's
yeah,
like a great exercise. That's like a great form of
for
exercise
sure,
for me. Like, I
for
mean,
sure.
I'm a, you know, competitive person, and just like
Yeah, yeah,
having that like outlet to direct that,
yeah,
like, you know, type of attention to, like, it definitely
yeah,
helps relieve a
yeah,
lot of stress and everything too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like,
So,
sorry,
oh
what were
no,
you gonna
no.
say?
Oh, I was
Um,
to say that's great. Yeah.
yeah, like I guess going on dieting, like I've tried a bunch of diets. The
Yeah.
last one I've tried, I'd say, was carnivore. Like I know the
Okay.
vegans out there aren't gonna be very happy, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, an all meat
There.
diet, like I honestly
Yeah.
liked it. I liked it a
Okay.
lot.
It's
I
very
learned,
simple. That's the
yeah,
thing.
it's
Yeah.
very simple. I
Yeah.
learned a lot for like what works for me. Like
Yeah.
nowadays, like I won't eat as much like pork or chicken.
Yeah.
Like in my opinion, it's like a lower quality of protein compared
Gotcha.
to like a steak or
Yeah.
like even like
Yeah.
hamburger or like
Yeah.
fish.
Yeah.
So like, so nowadays, like I'll eat more fish and beef.
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah.
What else? I realized after doing that that my body needs a little bit of carbs. So like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I try to eat only one scoop of rice, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Like that's like a
Yeah.
perfect amount for me. Like any
Yeah.
more, I think,
Yeah.
is just excess, and like any
Yeah.
less than that, like I'll notice significant like loss in strength and like
Yeah.
energy. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, carbs are definitely important. Like I know carbs
Yeah.
get a bad rap. Like just
Yeah.
cut out like the simple sugars, like, you know, your sodas, juices,
Yeah.
candies, you know, whatnot.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, for that, like, yeah, I'll eat like a scoop of rice, you know, like of course, you know, vegetables are great. Like, you know,
Yeah.
fill you up, it's fiber.
Yeah.
I should definitely eat more of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Um.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
That was
that's what I
always
do.
like. I that's what I realized too. I don't know if it's an Asian thing or like Caucasian thing. It's like a lot of my Caucasian friends do very, very well with keto.
Uh-huh.
I personally don't do very well with keto. Not
Hmm.
like just like it's for me. It's maybe I'm not sure if I did it right or it's just it doesn't fit well with my body sometimes. So I was like I actually digest carbs really really well, and it turns
Yeah.
into a lot of energy, and I don't really store a lot of fat. So that's kind of
Hmm.
I start to adjust of like introducing slow carbs into my diet. So
Uh-huh.
I personally think it's like I eat carbs in my life, and I can just do very very well with with the right amount.
You know, that's an interest. That's always something I thought about too. Like, you
Yeah,
know, growing up Asian, like pretty much
yeah,
all Asians eat rice, and it's like,
yeah,
you know, rice is relatively like, I don't know, it's like unusual in
yeah,
like a Caucasian diet, I guess.
yeah,
But it's
yeah, yeah,
like, yeah, that's like one thing I've always thought about. It's like, oh, do like specific ethnicities have like different
yeah,
food or like
yeah,
nutrient, like, you know,
yeah.
do they need different amounts? Right? I guess is like what I'm
Right,
thinking of. Like, it's, yeah,
right,
it's something
right.
I've always thought about as well. And
Yeah,
like, yeah, that rice one was a big one for me because like, yeah, after doing like, you know, no carb or low carb, like, yeah, it just didn't feel all, like it didn't feel right. Like it felt fine, you know. You definitely get results and like losing weight. Like
yeah,
you're definitely cutting
yeah,
calories and
yeah,
everything. But
yeah,
it's like, yeah, you feel like crap though. It's like, what's the point
yeah,
of
for
like,
sure.
you know, feeling like crap? At
Yeah,
the end of the day, like you want to feel
yeah,
good about yourself. You
yeah.
want, yeah.
The thing about like just every time I hear in interviews and like they talking about diet, they're like, dude, I feel so great. I can like do a lot of running. I feel like clarity and focus. I'm like, I never felt that from keto diet at all. And I'm like, and that's why I'm like, it's like you gotta really, really work, do what
Uh-huh.
works for your body. Other than just sometimes it's like popular, like this is like
Hmm.
popular thing to do keto and all this kind of stuff. For me, it's just like I found out that doing slow carbs and like a good amount of carbs works for me perfect. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I think
so
that's like all diets though, you know, like people should just
yeah,
find out like what works for them. Like, yeah, it's good to experiment and everything. It's funny
yeah,
that you brought up keto because like
yeah,
yeah, like a lot of my friends like blow up when they're on keto, like they gain
yeah,
weight.
yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure like, yeah, my friend Blake like tried it and he was like, "Oh yeah, I gained that was like the most weight I've ever gained in my life, or that was like the heaviest I ever was in my life." I'm like, "Oh
yeah,
yeah, you know,
yeah,
that's kind of funny." But like having like, you know, experimented and everything, like, yeah, it's very individual. Find out what works
yeah,
for you. Yeah, and then
yeah.
you look good, man, and like you
Oh,
obviously
thank you.
found what works for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's oh,
What's so
what?
like you're
Oh,
do you like still do like how do you like track your strength? Do you like track your one rep maxes and stuff, or
yeah,
it's
I
kind of
do that
just
a
like
lot.
lifting for hypertrophy?
Yeah, so I do that a lot, and I always keep up with my like one rep max strength and all that kind of stuff.
Mm,
Um, personally, I personally think I'm really, really designed for like Olympic lifting. I have
mm,
very, very small biceps and I have huge lats, and my quads are huge. So like, so I'm just saying like my bench is like really, really shit, but like all my like other lifts are like really, really good, and
mm,
it's mobility is really, really good as well. So like, again, it's one of those things is like you gotta like kind of focus on your like their strength sometimes. Like I focus
uh-huh.
on what you're good at sometimes, and then it's like sometimes benching is just something that I just couldn't get over and all that kind of stuff because
Mhm.
it's just maybe the way how my arms is all that kind of. So it's just fun, like
I
how
feel
I
like
like to look. Yeah,
I feel like your big back is your history in swimming.
yeah, like yeah, I
Yeah.
did like competitive swimming and all that kind of stuff. So that helped out a lot, and
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what I did. That was
Hmm.
fun.
I guess
Yeah,
this kind of leads into like the next part you brought up
yeah.
earlier about talking about like what you're passionate about. So what is Sunny Yang passionate about?
Okay. I personally, in terms of like just life and work and all that kind of stuff, I like to create systems and I like to predict what's going to happen in the future. That's just what I like. Everything I do, even just like sports, even just lifting, even just with humans, and I like to figure out what's going to happen in the future, and I like to create a system around it. That's what I like to do. That's like in terms of like how my brain thinks, and so poker definitely, stock market, passionate, designing stuff that like system design. That's what I love to do.
Hmm.
And and I love raves. This is like that's like my deepest like passion and all that kind of stuff. I love raves. I go every race. So like I'm just saying it's like that's like what I so it's like the stock market, designing systems, and raves. Well, that's all me. That's my passion and all that kind
Hmm.
of stuff. So that's what I love to do. I can do it all day. I love it. Yeah,
Well, you want to talk stocks?
yeah, for
Stonks?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. So
Um,
yeah, this isn't investment advice or financial
yeah.
advice, but like, what do you do? I'm kind of curious. Like, I always like to
Yeah.
talk about. I always just like to talk to people our age. Like, oh, what are you doing in terms of like investing? Because like a
Yeah.
lot of us, in our like mid to like late 20s now, have to start thinking about
Yeah.
the future and like
Yeah. Yeah.
opportunities for retirement. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like, what do you do if you're willing to
So
share?
yeah. Obviously, so it's gonna be a little bit like technical and all that kind of stuff. Okay, if I have to just give one advice to like anybody that like future or any other stuff, always invest in companies that are a little bit monopolistic, if that makes sense. Like
That sounds like a
if
safe bet.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you have to look at like, is there a replacement for that product? If there's the answer is no, then you know that you're found the right company. If I can really give anybody, it's like it's really technical. Like there's fundamentals, there's technicals and stuff. Invest in companies that are monopolistic, like
Mm.
things that you can't lift or there's no replacement.
Hmm.
That's my personal opinion.
Hmm.
You know, you look at you know Apple Watch. It's like, is there a replacement? Yes, but I would say the market share is 80% Apple Watch. And it's only going to get better and with the software upgrades and all that kind of stuff. So that is, in my opinion, a little bit monopolistic. It's like, is Coke monopolistic? I don't know, but it's like, can you find another substitute? I think it's sometimes you can, and that's where it gets a little bit like, okay, like should you get that? Should you not get that? Then I think that's answer is sometimes no. So
Hmm.
I personally think if you can't stick with monopolistic companies, you're gonna win in the long run. And
Hmm.
obviously there's technicals of should you buy or should you sell. Those are just another stuff. That's my personal investment advice. And um, any by the way, anytime you see a stock market pullback or like the kind of stuff that we're experiencing right now on Robinhood, just dollar like there's a reoccurring investment feature. Just click it, put $5 in every day. that's, and you don't have to time it. You don't have to, just when you see like a big decline in the past 2 or 3 weeks, just press reoccurring advice. So I'm giving advice on the bigger picture of like
long
where I'm
term.
investing, and then a small tactical advice on how you can do it. And so
Oh, okay.
that's how I match, how I tell everybody, it's like, do those two things. So that's basically like how I look at, stock market,
Okay.
investments, those
Like
kind of stuff. Yeah.
that's like, okay, I guess like, my take on it is like, I only do long-term
Yeah,
investments.
for
Like
sure.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't do I don't do day trading. Like I
Yeah.
don't think like, oh, what can I sell in a year for like,
Yeah.
a quick
Yeah.
profit. Like
Yeah.
everything in my portfolio now is like something I'm willing to hold for
Yeah.
decades. And
Yeah.
like as a result, like I like to choose companies that like I like their like, company mission and what they're
Hmm.
like, what they
Hmm.
stand for, what they're about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh yeah, and like I don't
Yeah.
know, like it's because like I'm holding it long term. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it has to be like something like I support or believe in.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a
like
good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
a big one that I like is like Nvidia. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, everybody likes it because it's like a good
Yeah.
money maker, but it's like you
Yeah.
said, they kind of do have a monopoly on like
Democracy.
graphics
Yeah.
cards. Like
Yeah. For sure.
yes, AMD does make them, but
Yeah.
everybody in like in the computer world much rather would have like a Nvidia graphics card versus
Right.
AMD.
Right. Right.
So
No, that's a good one. Yeah.
yeah, not
Again, this is
investment
gonna get it.
advice. That's just what
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And like this is where it gets sometimes like milky and like sometimes that kind of stuff. The funny thing about it is that I believe in long-term investment.
Right.
And sometimes I believe you can have speculation as well. So what I mean by that, it's like it's a little bit like trading. It's like, well, you know, buying baseball cards or buying Supreme t-shirts and selling it the next day is like, do you call that investment? I don't know. I think that's more of a trading and all that kind of, you can trade, just make sure that like, you're under, so I think here's a advice that I think, that's another different advice. It's like, every type of my investment, it needs to be at least 100% return. So that's like 1x or like you've got like 10x or yeah, is that 1x? Yeah, that's 1x
Yeah.
or 100% return. So
Mm,
anything that it's less than 100% return, I personally think you're wasting your time. And anything that has 100% return, no matter what the value is, doesn't matter. If you can convert, if you buy something for $2, you can sell for $4. That's 100%. And I think you need to train your brain to understand how to create 100% return all the time. And once you know how to train your brain to create 100% return, there's things in life that you see, you're just like, yo, that opportunity right there is it's a go. Like you need to, and that it's a no-go. So I personally think that every type of investment that you do should give you almost like 100% return. And I don't care the timeline. I just think that whatever you do,
right.
100% good. Because I just think that the work is so hard and the patience that you have to do, that you need to be, in it for at least a 10x, so
Yeah.
that's what I think. I personally think that's kind of my second philosophy, is that just, I don't care what you buy, just make sure you get 100% return. So that's the thing. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I know like the big thing now is like, cryptocurrency taking massive
yeah.
hits, like especially like, this past week. What I
Yeah.
tell people, like I know a lot of like, friends and stuff that I know are like, oh, yeah, I sold everything, like screw this, like I'm
Yeah.
just gonna, take my losses now and that's it.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
and I always have the philosophy of like, you're only a loser when you sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like funny
Yeah.
too, like for like stocks, like in my lifetime, last I checked, I'm up like 1900%, something like that.
Yeah.
But then I mean,
Yeah.
of course it's like small change, it's not like,
Yeah.
like life changing,
Yeah.
types of things. But
Yeah.
like I always hear like such interesting like perspectives of it. They're like, oh, why would you
Yeah.
not like pull out your initial investment
Yeah.
or stuff like
Yeah.
that? Like
Yeah.
yeah, there's just like so many ways to go about it. It's just like, of course, like invest, like my opinion is like invest like as much as you're willing to lose. Like,
Right.
don't invest like, into like, oh yeah, I need this much money to live each month. Like don't cut into
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
different, like for everybody,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. And yeah, I honestly think it's like, should you put out I personally think that, like, if you're into crypto dreams and all that kind of stuff, it's like, I think good for you. I just think that, you have to really understand that sometimes it can be like, it can be a little bit of a .com thing where there
Hmm.
are good companies, Google and Amazon,
Hmm.
that survive .coms. You just gotta know which coin that you're buying and know
Yeah.
that it's speculations in some ways.
Hmm.
You have to be prepared that when it's speculations, you got to be prepared to like know where your losses are and
Right.
how
Right.
to all that kind of stuff. And the thing about losses, I think, okay, like sell or no sell, I don't know, but it's like you're up 1900%. You really don't need to worry about like the 10%, 20% correction, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But I think it's like the thing that people I think forgot is that, like, if your portfolio is down 50%, you have to make 100% to return most of your investment. Like,
Right.
you have to
Right.
gain the initial 50 and you have to gain another 50 to make it
Yeah.
worthwhile your time. So that's all risk management. And I think that's the
Hmm.
second part of like stock market. It's like, you need to know that, like, hey, once you lost 50%, you need to gain 100% to make it worthwhile, or
Hmm.
else you're just losing a shitload of money that it's very, very, very hard to gain back. You
Right.
need 10
Right.
extra to kind of gain back those kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So, but if you're up big time, you don't need to worry about 20, 30% correction.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not too worried. Like, I mean, all
Yeah,
the really big, like, investors out there are
yeah,
like, oh yeah, we're thinking there's
yeah,
going to be like a 30% correction real
yeah,
soon.
yeah,
And
yeah, 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 yeah.
but then,
I, yeah,
like, I started like right before, like, you could have literally chosen any stock and you would have made money,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
in the past like 3 years or so. So, like,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I've seen it tank, like back then, like, 2016s
yeah,
and stuff, like, so
yeah,
it's like, everybody thinks they're like a investment, like, genius right now.
yeah,
But it's
yeah,
like, people like, I worry about a lot of like my friends that think they're like, 300% smarter because, oh yeah, I made
yeah,
300% gains in the past three
yeah,
years or however
yeah,
long.
yeah,
But it's
yeah,
like, what happens when you lose 300%? Like, are you gonna
yeah,
think you're
yeah,
like 300% like dumber or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
It
I, yeah. I personally think last year, uh, everybody should get a free pass from last year. I'm not saying you're not a good investor, but I would
yeah.
say, like, if you can make the same return this year compared to last year, then you know you're a really good investor. Then
Hmm.
you really know that you got some talent in the stock market. I
Yeah.
personally think last year, just anybody that got in around April, you pretty much
Hmm.
made 100% return on any of your stocks or any of your portfolios. So I personally, last year, it's a little bit like a throwaway. It's like a
Uh-huh.
little bit throwaway. But I think,
No.
like, this year, if anybody can make like the same return from this year, I will clap hand for you. Like,
Hmm.
you need to kind of focus on this as your passion. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
me, it's like, if you sold in that like last week of like January last year, right before
yeah,
COVID,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah,
took your money and then you reinvested in like March or
yeah,
something, like, you're a
yeah,
genius. Like,
yeah.
yeah, but
That's it's very, very hard to
everybody,
time that. Yeah,
yeah, everybody was getting accused of insider trading for doing that. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's one of those things, and
yeah.
yeah, I would say that it's I personally agree. I think the
Mhm.
best returns, and anybody that does a lot of good investment agree that long term investments are definitely beats market all the time.
Mhm.
And just it's even the for me, it's like I care about the process too. So it's like I create like systems and all that kind of stuff, the process of when to buy, when to sell. It's like, for me, that's a part of a long-term thing too. I just
Mhm.
personally, it's just like, I think something is overbought, I just don't buy it. Like, it's just a personal rule. I just don't
Uh-huh.
buy it, and you just wait, and it's that kind of stuff. And then I just have to. It's like, I think my best investment was in I think after I graduated from Roosevelt, my dad
Mhm.
asked me, it's like, hey, do you want your computers and your accessories, all that kind of stuff, like, for you in college, or do you want Apple and Facebook stocks? And I was like, I'll take Apple and Facebook stocks, and the rest is history. That's my
Yeah.
that's my best investment. I started investing in Apple and Facebook when I was 18, so
Mhm.
it's almost 9 years now. So
Yeah. That
yeah.
that's great. Like,
Yeah, I tell people, it's like, because A, they're monopolistic, and second, it's like I like the product, and
uh
so that's like, I just use that every day, and I use
yeah.
Facebook every day at that time. So I
Mhm.
I like those. So
I
it's
remember when, I guess, yeah, talking about my first stocks too. Like, I was working and I was like thinking, huh, like this sounds like something fun and like something I should like look into. So
Yeah,
like at the time I had it narrowed down to like Nvidia and Tesla. And that was back at the
yeah,
time where they were pretty much the same price. That was
yeah,
right
yeah,
before Tesla
yeah,
like really took off. But I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
oh, I'll
yeah,
just go with like Nvidia because it's like so much safer,
yeah,
I was like
yeah,
thinking, oh, like each Tesla car has like a graphics card in it.
yeah,
And it's like that was
yeah,
like, I mean, I knew what cryptocurrency was, like, yeah, like as we were coming out
yeah,
of like Roosevelt and
yeah,
everything. I was like, oh,
yeah,
like it's really important for mining cryptocurrency. I was like, yeah,
yeah,
this seems like a safer option. But
yeah,
now looking back, it's like, huh, how much different would it have been if I went with like
yeah,
Tesla instead? But you can't think like
yeah,
that, you really can't. Like,
exactly,
you got to look at your
exactly,
returns as is, like, it's already better than a lot of other people out there.
yeah,
So it's like,
exactly, yeah,
yeah. And I
so,
like that they
yeah,
pay dividends. Tesla doesn't pay
yeah,
dividends, I think.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I like Nvidia and I like Teslas too. And the thing about them is like they're just historically, if you look at the chart, they're just outperformers. They have
Hmm.
outperformed the market all the time. So
Hmm.
it's like if they're down, I would recommend my just personal opinion. It's
Yeah.
like don't take investment. I personally say if you're down, just dollar cost average into it because all that kind of stuff. And it
Hmm.
goes to same with like how I look at the world and like betting on America and all that kind of stuff. It's like
Right.
yo, there are a lot of very, very motivated. Like, if you ever been to one of those companies and you work in the mainland, there are a lot of very smart and motivated people in this company that won't
Hmm.
let it go bust. Like that,
Hmm.
I personally think that just they'll figure out solutions and won't let it go bust. Like, so it's like you don't sometimes bet against them because it's like you're betting against them. You're betting against people that go to Stanford that create apps and that like
Hmm.
are like really really ambitious, and it's just like you don't want to bet against them. So
Hmm.
I
Right.
I
Right.
personally just that's kind of my opinion about like just
Yeah.
the stock market economy in general, those kind of
Hmm.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. I wish I picked up a little bit more back when it crashed, but I went with
yeah.
Berkshire Hathaway instead. I mean,
Oh,
it
when
was
March?
not A, B, of
Uh,
course. Like,
okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Like
Berkshire
around
B.
like last year, March.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
And I was just
that
like, oh, like I'm sitting pretty on that now. But like
yeah, yeah,
it was always like on my like, watch list. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
Berkshire
yeah,
Hathaway, they invest in a lot of like, food industry and everything. So
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
people are always
yeah.
gonna need food. So it's like, oh, it's probably a good
So
one.
yeah, so if
Yeah.
my prediction is like if the inflation is as they talked about in the
Hmm.
market right now, for sure there's a lot of industry that will profit from inflation and all that kind of stuff. But
Hmm.
there's another side of story of like, oh, I don't think it'll be that high. Then maybe
Yeah.
Berkshire would be. But I personally think it's like, yeah, if inflation is the way to go, then it's like Berkshire would be doing very, very good. It's full disclosure is part of my portfolio too. A lot of those
Yeah.
value the stocks in those companies. So
Hmm.
good pick stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I like Warren Buffett. It's kind of hard to bet
yeah,
against Warren Buffett,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
So you don't want to bet against them. Yeah,
granted, like I don't know if I completely agree with him with like cryptocurrency and everything because it
exactly.
seems like he
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily understand it.
yeah,
But and then yeah, I don't know. Like it's an interesting company. Like I like
yeah,
him. He makes a lot of people money. Like people will
yeah.
follow him, right? And like
So
buy whatever
yeah,
he buys and sells whatever he sells and everything. So it's like,
yeah.
it's not a bad
Uh,
bet in my opinion.
In regards to Warren Buffett, I just have to say two things. It's like it's like um, so basically it's like you can be right. You can both investors can like a tech disruptor investor and Warren Buffett can both be right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be
Mhm.
one wrong and one right. So just
Right.
because he's wrong on cryptocurrencies, it doesn't mean that he's wrong. Like he's a bad investor, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And the second thing about Warren Buffett is like, but he's just like a person of like, um, like if in the next 10 years there's no technology improvement, people are still going to drink Coke, then okay, just buy Coca-Cola. Like I'm just like he's
Mhm.
kind of like the part of like technology innovation is not really his concern. And I was like, and I
Mhm.
think the last part that I was going to talk about that I think everybody should know, everybody should hear, and that's my personal investment philosophy as well. Warren Buffett missed out on Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, and
Mhm.
still is the richest person in the world.
Yeah.
In life, you can miss out on good investment and still become rich.
Mhm.
Here's what I do know though. If you take some dumb investment advice, sometimes from me, I don't know, but it's like if you take dumb investment advice, for sure you will lose money and for sure
Mhm.
you will go broke. You
Mhm.
can miss out. Like I said, you don't have to chase the game, but I just like if you miss out on like Warren Buffett miss out on a lot of good companies and still one of the richest person in the world, But if you take some dumb or you do over leverage or you play around with stupid options that you don't know, you for sure would go broke. Like that's just my opinion. Like
Right.
that's how my deductive reasoning works.
Yeah.
So I never really care if I missed out on crypto or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I honestly got a little bit into crypto because like when Bitcoin was like, a few cents, I was like, oh, like well, that's when I found out. I was like, what is this thing? I think it was like maybe like
You
70
found out
cents
with
at
a
the
few
time.
cents?
Like 70 cents. It was like slightly under
Are you
$1.
serious?
Like, yeah, I think it was like
wow.
might have been like 2011. Like, yeah, like
wow.
right before senior year. Like I was like, oh, what the heck is this thing? But I was like, what the heck? I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, huh, like, and it was almost impossible to like acquire too at the time.
So how do you, okay, my personal thing, it's like, I understand. Where do you get your information from? How do you look at, how do you find out about crypto? How did you find out about NVIDIA? Like, how do you vet your information? And how do you know where to get good information?
That's a good question. Honestly, like a lot of it is like gut feeling. I didn't get in at that time. Okay, full disclosure, I did not get in when it was like under $1. I did not get in when it was under $1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess like to talk about that story, it's like I see it at like under $1, and I was like, oh, okay, what is this thing? See it hit $2. I'm like, what the heck? Like this thing doubled. And then you see it hit like $10, and I was like, oh man, maybe I should have got in when it was $2. And it was like, and it hits $100 each, and I was like, oh, I should have got in when it was like $12. And it's like, and it's 1,000. It's like, oh, I should have got in when it was 100. And then it jumped up to 10 grand. And it was like, should have got in when it was 1,000. Like I had that like cycle like so many times. And then like when it hit like 50, I was like, okay, it's time to like, pick up some small fractions of it. And then, but it's a loser right now. But then it's like, I believe that in the future it could, I could be wrong. Like it's not advice, but I think right now it is undervalued because of it's decentralized. It's not a token. It's like there's like a lot of like benefits. Like it'd be cool to see in like other currencies and whatnot, but with cryptocurrency, like like what you said earlier, you really need to know what you're buying when you're just looking at like, oh, what coin is this or whatever. Like from a rule that I have for myself is like no tokens.
Okay.
Yeah. So like so like if anything, like the only things I'll really look at nowadays is like the big two. And I think everything else is like literally walking into a casino. I mean, that's my philosophy. Like I know
my philosophy
a lot of people will say I'm wrong. But like if it's not Bitcoin, Ethereum, I mean, I guess like Cardano's pretty good since it's like the same founder as like Ethereum. The co-founder made his own, right? And like it's supposed to be more. There's supposed to be more privacy or something in Cardano or something. I honestly haven't looked that much into like Cardano. But like I'd say like the first two. Like Ethereum is good because like a lot of websites nowadays are built off of that infrastructure and accept Ethereum as payment or they pay out in like Ethereum. So like I think that's like it makes it safer. And then like Bitcoin was like the first, and like it's already established and everything.
I personally like think so too. I only pay attention to that, Cardano's, and maybe Litecoin just to look at it, just because it's so much, it's just traded everywhere. So it's just, that like when it goes, it goes. So I would say that like I pay attention to those coins too. I think I personally bond to that philosophy as like, okay, it might be a .com thing, but there's only going to be few coins that survive, and you might as well go with like, you're cool with 100% return. You don't need 1,000% return like Dogecoin, man. Like 100% return, you're living a pretty good life. You don't need,
like
you don't need,
if I bought Doge at 5 cents and it hit like 50 cents, I would have been like, oh, good luck everybody else. I'm out.
Yeah.
But Doge was actually like one of the earlier coins out there, and it was literally created as a meme. Like it was literally created to not have any value whatsoever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then the fact that like it's having value now is a little concerning to me, because what a lot of people don't realize is that there are a lot of privacy concerns with Dogecoin that people don't necessarily realize. That's why Elon made those like messages those tweets this past week about like how he wants to work with the creators of Dogecoin to like fix those like privacy like issues. He's all in on cryptocurrency. I don't know. I saw right through it when the whole Bitcoin crash first started. Like I was like, he's not selling Bitcoin. Tesla's not going to get rid of their Bitcoin. Like I saw right through it. And then that's when I was like, oh my God, like Elon must have sold everything, and then like a few days later he tweets, "Oh, Tesla diamond hands."
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and so when people were bad, I'm like, it's like, okay, like if you followed him long enough, you already know that he likes to do like he likes to troll.
Yeah.
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 And it's like
So
you shouldn't be taking an investment advice from him to begin with.
gotcha.
Like
Yeah.
my opinion is that like you shouldn't be taking investment advice from like anybody, like not even like
Right.
Warren Buffett. Like
Yeah.
you really need to do the research for yourself. And to get back to
Yeah.
your like your question, like how do I vet information, it's like a
Right.
lot of it is like gut feeling. It's like, okay, what is this company's product? So like
Yeah.
say Starbucks.
Right.
Like Starbucks, sells a lot of coffee. Yes, they took like
Yeah.
a massive hit in sales because of COVID, but before that,
Yeah.
like they were outperforming. They
Yeah.
also pay out some of the best dividends for like
Right.
cost per share.
Right.
So it was like for me, it was like a no-brainer at the time. And
Yeah.
like I'm glad I got in when I did, when it was like I think like 45 each, and now it's like
Right.
150 or something, or
Right.
110,
Right.
110. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
it's like
good. Yeah.
it's like I just go with, and it kind of goes back to like what I said earlier. It's like I just go with companies that I believe in.
Yeah.
Like the thing about Starbucks I like is like they're always pushing out like new products in different seasons. Like they're
Mhm.
always like trying to stay relevant. It's like they're
Right.
always in the news. It's like, oh, pumpkin spice lattes are back, even though
Yeah.
they come around every single year and they seem to be coming out like a month sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like choose like companies that you believe in. Like
Yeah.
when the reason why I went with Nvidia over Tesla was because like I didn't think electric vehicles would take off as
Right.
fast or as hard as they are
Right.
now. And
Yeah.
it's like even still, like the problem that I have with electric vehicles is like, one, you don't know what to do with the battery once like the
Right.
battery is like dead, and like
Yeah.
two, like a lot of like places still rely on like fossil fuels to generate electricity to charge a Tesla.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So it like that really played into it. And it's like, yes, looking at portfolio strictly, it would have been, better to go with Tesla, but it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like sometimes it's better to go with the safer option.
Yeah.
Like even though like you said, your rule is like you need to make your 100
Yeah.
times return,
Yeah.
like you need to at least double your money. Like
Yeah.
for me, it was like, yeah, it's a long-term investment for a
Exactly.
reason.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how I
And
like choose things.
yeah. And again,
Yeah.
getting something that you don't understand, it's the worst thing that you can ever do. It's it's like, what are you doing? And then again, it's
Yeah.
like there's no rush, and it's like
Mhm.
you missing out some good companies, sure, whatever. Everybody missed
Mhm.
out. Like the world greatest Omaha, the Omaha investor
Yeah.
missed out on this and stuff. But
Well,
if
he
you
has a
get
very
in,
hard stance against technology.
yeah, yeah. Like I said,
Yeah.
he's the kind of guy who's like, you're gonna drink Coke for the next 10 years. It's like he doesn't really care about technology
Mhm.
investment. He invests in Apple though, so it's like pretty good. And
Mhm.
that's probably his best return so far. But yeah, I would say like, you can miss out on some good investment. It's cool, but
Mhm.
if you gotten the wrong one for the wrong reason, you pretty much will go broke. Like
Yeah.
it's really
Definitely got to
scary.
diversify like
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well. Like because it helps, because
yeah,
like the idea of like a diversifying is like, oh, your losses will like, or your gains will just make up for whatever losses, right? So I mean,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, like
So
like granted, like I've been fortunate that the stuff that I've picked so far, like long-term wise, has been like very steady and like pretty
right,
strong. So like I
right,
can't complain. But like, yeah, people really need to like know why they're getting into it. Like, don't just jump
for
on
sure.
like Wall Street Bets Reddit and be like,
Yeah,
oh, these guys are all buying into like GME. And
yeah.
I could have gotten in early and made that, made a lot of money, but I was like, no, I'm not. I told myself very early on, no meme
Where did you
stocks,
find
no
that
meme.
piece of information too? Were you on Reddit? Like
Oh
that's
no,
like
I
funny. Yeah.
I
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, I
uh,
don't do I rarely check Reddit for investment.
gotcha.
Like
Okay.
I
Yeah, you
think
should.
about like what I do is like I just think about like, oh, like what companies are doing well, and like
Yeah,
what do they have, what service or product do they have to offer,
yeah,
and
yeah.
like how long are they gonna dominate that market.
Right.
And for me, like I generally like stocks with like dividends, because
Yeah.
it's like whatever you
You can
put
prove. Yeah,
in, the dividend
yeah.
will pay out more than whatever savings account you have.
Exactly. Yeah,
So like
that's good philosophy.
that's originally how I started. It's
Yeah,
like dividends all the way. Like
yeah,
it's like, I don't know, the way, I don't know, like I grew up with like parents that weren't the most financially literate. It
yeah.
was always like save, 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 save. But then it's like, oh, great. Like you saved up, if you saved up like, $10,000 in say like 2010,
Right.
compare that $10,000 to now, you can buy way less stuff with that
Yeah.
$10,000 due to inflation. And I
Gotcha.
think, and like my personal, I might be wrong, you know, but I think that like putting your money in a savings account doesn't make up for, you know, inflation,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
just losing money. You're
yeah,
devaluing your own money. And it's like
yeah,
you kind of I think you have to put it, you know, and risk it
yeah,
in investments
yeah.
for you to like, you know, be able to at least make up for the fact that inflation is a thing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to explain something that's like very, very interesting about like savings versus like investing, all that kind
Hmm.
of stuff. I don't think saving for a house or buying a house, I don't think that's a bad investment. But
Right,
here's the
right.
difference, and it's hard for you to hear look at this on a podcast, but like I'm just going to explain it. Is that when you buy a house, there's a fixed cost that you first have to pay out, and then as
Hmm.
time goes on, um, the cost goes down lower and lower. So the fixed cost goes down and lower, and like that's how the Asian mentality comes in, and that's why they're always like savings, be frugal, but you own a property at the end of the day,
Hmm.
like when the cost goes down and all that. That's just one of it. I think that's the majority of people. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Here's what I think the really, really rich people how they do it and why they always look so low stress, but they make double or triple their money like during like sometimes. And here's what it is that you invest in something that almost it's a dead getaway. It's almost like you're almost losing your money. Like you pretty much don't care about losing that money. But the thing about it is that the requirement is that the initial capital is so low. It's so low that like you almost is like dead giveaway. But here's the thing is that all you need to do is that I would say the first lifetime of that investment, you just need to stop looking at the chart. You need to stop
Hmm.
looking at where the company's going. You need to stop looking at the news. You just go party. You go to Bahamas, you go to Florida, you go to raves. I don't care what you do. You just go party.
Hmm.
And then it will pick up. Then once it pick up, the what they call is like your investment, the next milestone from 50 to $100, you like for example, for $1 to $50, that's great. But from 50 to 100, like your money goes exponential. All you need to
Hmm.
do is just to sit out that initial period of all kind of stuff. That's what I call a 10x return. I hope
Hmm.
that makes sense. And it's really hard to see it because I'm pointing all my fingers and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
that's how I think it's like there's a difference between how the Asian kind of mentality. It's like you, and I think this is right. It's just you kind of that's why you're working your ass off, but then like as time goes on, you become richer and richer and all that kind of stuff. But how I think sometimes like really, really like millionaires what kind of do is like they started with almost a capital they're willing to lose. All you need to do is sell in the beginning the part, but then the money turns into exponential. Like
Hmm.
once it hit a certain spot, like the inflection point, and then
Right,
you
right.
you party and you party afterward. So it's a funny thing that I personally it's like my philosophy of like how I think sometimes investment works and all that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Mm. No, I totally agree. I mean,
yeah,
like me, you know, buying a little bit of like, you know, fractions of
yeah,
Bitcoin, it's like,
yeah,
I'm gonna sit this out. You know,
yeah,
I've followed Bitcoin for like 10 years now, pretty much. And
yeah,
it's like, I've seen these like dips. Like when it was at
yeah,
20K and it dropped down to 10, like I saw
yeah,
a huge market sell off and it still
yeah,
survived. And it got,
yeah,
you know, up to 60 and then
yeah,
it dropped to like 30 for like a minute.
yeah,
And then now it's like
yeah,
hovering around like, you know,
yeah,
35, I think, 40 last I
yeah,
checked. So,
yeah.
you know,
So
like I said earlier, like I think you only lose money when you sell.
yeah,
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 like
true.
if you just sit on it and you know you see what happens in time, in most
Yeah,
cases, like nothing really drops to zero.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, could
So
be wrong
yeah,
though, but
yeah.
you know
So
that's how I choose to lose it. And like I said earlier, like only invest what you're willing to lose, which you kind of
exactly.
reinforce too. Like
Yeah. So
yeah, and to me, like and putting a little bit of money into stocks is more fun than you know walking into like a casino, like Caesar's Palace
yeah,
or something. Like oh, put
yeah.
it all on red or something or
That's
like
stupid.
you know or like slot machines. So it's like no like
Yeah.
that's like literal gambling. At least this you know there's some rationale whether or not it's real or not, you know, you could like you know rationalize it
Yeah.
versus like oh you know
Yeah.
my favorite color is red, you know, versus black, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna go with the
Yeah.
red.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
No. Awesome.
yeah, but yeah, it's a hard time for investors, especially like for the you know a lot of the people I know that are like just getting into it or just got in it like last year and they're trying to see like oh my god like why am I in the red, like it
Yeah.
happens. Like,
Yeah.
don't worry, don't panic, just write
Yeah.
it out, it'll be
Yeah.
fine. It usually is fine in the end. And
Yeah.
it's like if you're that concerned that, oh, everything you have is going to go to zero, then like there's a
Yeah.
lot more problems in society and
Yeah.
like in the
Yeah.
financial institutions than, your
Yeah.
portfolio. So
Yeah.
don't
For
worry too
sure.
much about it. It's like
Yeah.
I try to like look at it as like how those big like investment firms look at it. It's like, oh, when you win, you win. When you lose, you can win.
Yeah.
Granted, we don't get bailouts like, those guys do, but
Right. Right.
yeah, there's usually something going on when those guys are like losing big too. So
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like
Oof.
if
Yeah.
if the people that do it for a living are losing, like why are you any different than those people who are
Right.
supposedly experts in it? It's like,
True.
yeah,
True. True.
yeah.
True.
Don't
Yeah.
worry. Don't look into it too much. Just write it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Could be
Oh.
wrong. Not investment advice. Just, what I do. We're just talking about what we
Yeah.
do individually. And
For sure. Yeah.
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 Right.
Cool.
Was there anything you wanted to talk about? Like we're almost at like 2 hours now.
Yeah.
That went by really fast too.
Yeah, that went out really fast. I did not realize that at all. The topic just gets interesting and more interesting.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
we
was
can
like a lot of
we can
yeah,
go ahead and like end it here and then you can like
yeah,
catch up another time too. Like
yeah, for
I have
sure.
like some stuff I still got to work out. Like honestly,
Yeah,
like I had planned to work out before this, but I was like just
yeah.
staring at like my socks for like an hour and a half, and then I was like, oh, basketball's on, procrastinate, and
Yeah,
work out.
yeah.
Games are pretty
I,
good.
yeah. I
Yeah.
guess like my last question is like, what do you feel like um like is talking to people fun, or you think that like you really like to talk to like like how the future is going and all that kind of stuff. I haven't really heard of I know that you're doing a podcast. I haven't heard of the
Yeah.
other ones, but what do you usually like to talk about like on this stuff? That stuff.
Honestly,
Yeah.
like I do like to talk about like what people are passionate about. That's why I was
Gotcha.
like, oh, because like it's as like a podcast host, it's easy to get like your guests to open up and feel
Yeah.
comfortable when they're
Yeah.
talking about something that like they enjoy
Gotcha.
and or
Okay.
like are like somewhat knowledgeable about. So like I see it
Yeah.
as like an opportunity for me to learn something about that like I might not have much knowledge about, where like my
Yeah.
guests might have a lot more knowledge. Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
I take it as like a excellent like learning opportunity. And I like
Gotcha.
talking to people. Like
For
I
sure.
I mean that's like one of the biggest things that I missed like during COVID. Like,
Yeah.
going out,
Yeah.
going to the bar, just striking up
Yeah.
conversations with people. Like
Yeah.
now, like I'll just talk to like random people at like Costco if I'm like waiting in line.
Yeah.
Like the other day, like I
Yeah.
was just talking to this like tourist,
Yeah.
and like
For
it was
sure.
a good time. I just like
Yeah.
talking to people. Like I like to try to
Yeah.
understand how people think.
Gotcha.
Like,
Yeah.
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 I
That's
do
great.
like I think you said something earlier about like talking about the future. Like I
Yeah.
do like there's something called transhumanism. I don't know if you know
Uh-huh.
what that is, but like I'm
Yeah.
I'm pretty interested in that too.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, like what's gonna
Cool.
happen to like humans moving forward? Like
Yeah.
what are
Yeah.
humans gonna evolve into?
Yeah. For
What's
sure.
the future for
Yeah.
humanity? Like I do like to think about that. I do like to think about like problems in the world too and like how to fix them. So like
It's cool.
I I do have some like ideas for like certain like problems in the world, but like
Yeah.
don't necessarily have the capital to be able to like attempt to solve those problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a
I,
good
I
topic.
I like
There's a
to
lot of
I
topic.
just
Yeah.
like to think, like, and then there's only one lifetime, and there's
Yeah.
only so much you can do in one lifetime, unless the idea of like transhumanism is real, where we'll reach immortality by like 2045. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's like a completely different like topic. Like that
Yeah.
probably went over like everybody's head because they have no idea
Yeah.
what that is for the most part. But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just like to think about like problems. I like to understand how other people think. Like that's
Yeah.
what I enjoy, and that's like the
For
goal of this
sure.
podcast: to sit down with people,
For sure.
listen and
Yeah. It's
have
great.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of interesting people, even just ordinary people, just talk about how they think and all that kind
Oh
of stuff.
yeah, of
That's so
course. I
good.
mean,
Yeah.
like that's kind of why, like, as of late, I'm just reaching out to like old friends and like, hey, let's
Yeah.
catch up. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly miss like those times in like high school, or like even
Yeah.
before that. Like it's
Yeah.
your life changes so drastically after like undergrad, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Like
it's I have no idea how fast time goes on, and like everybody just
mhm,
departed to go their thing. It was one of the things that I wish I could have like stay a little bit more and like talk to
mhm.
people more, and like that's like the best thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like for the younger like listeners out there, like definitely like, enjoy your time in like school. because
Yeah.
like once you're out of school, like even if you go to
Yeah.
like professional school or grad school, it's not the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
And
I,
it's
I
it's
I think yeah. Go ahead.
and it's like don't also like I don't know. I one thing I wish I did better was like,
Yeah.
kept in contact with like, you guys more.
Right. Right.
Like, just checked up on you guys like, every so
Yeah.
often rather than like, oh,
Yeah.
don't talk for like a few years and then, out of the
Yeah.
blue. Like
Yeah.
that's like one thing like I wish I did a little better. And it's
Yeah.
like moving forward, like I hope to like, still stay in contact with like,
Right.
old friends and stuff,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that I was gonna tell like young people that it's like in school and all that kind of stuff. I think after undergrad or maybe in grad, I don't know. School is like that's the only time that you get to learn and explore new topics and to really like learn because once you're in the real world, you're mostly applying what you learn. It's really never about like theoretical or abstract ideas where you can digest and learn about those kind of stuff. It's like you can, but it's like this podcast is all gonna we're digesting abstract ideas, but it's like those opportunity gets less and less once you go to the workplace. It's like it's all about it's more about like executing what you learn or you just learning a lot of like stuff that's like is really listening. So I'll say like those are the part that I really miss about school, like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for doing this, Sonny. It
Oh,
was great catching
thank
up with
you.
you and everything,
Yeah, love it. Like we'll do it. We'll catch up
Yeah. And
if it
then
goes on.
if
So
I'm ever in like Chicago or like, in the
yeah,
area, like I'll for sure like, hit you up and everything. You got to show me around
visit,
and say what's
visit,
up to
visit.
Colin and everything,
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
Visit me.
Yeah.
Cool. All
All right.
right.
Thanks,
Let's see
everybody.
ya. Yeah. Bye.